Today is September 30th. It is about a little bit after 9 o'clock. I was talking about what happened around the miscarriage, and I was going to proceed from there into my work at the Latin American restaurant and how I met my fiance, and then what kinds of things CPS was doing in obstructing justice from Washington State. But I was thinking last night that I would like to include a little bit of information from earlier, and these are totally separate segments of events that occurred that I didn't mention earlier. And I did say at some point that I might just kind of go along this trajectory and then add, kind of punch a few details in here and there if I forgot to do that, or go back at some time and fill it in. And adding this information, these couple of things, is probably really not that significant, and it's but I decided to go ahead and add it since it came to mind. And I think from this point forward, if I do have something that comes to mind where I can sort of punch that in a little bit, then I will try to do that, so that I'm never going to get all of the information that is surrounding torture of me and my family into this, but as much as I can do, I am going to try to do, and some of the things that are not exactly torture, but are events surrounding it, can be related, because people who have surrounded me and wanted to observe me have been connected to torture of me. They've wanted to pass that information to those who are doing this kind of remotely controlled torture. And this morning I was tortured, and I've been tortured since I woke up, which is why I woke up, and I am being tortured now, basically. So it's all to the exact same side, my left side of my ear and my tooth and my neck. And the other day I was pushing in on a spot on my neck, which kind of caused the rest of the pain everywhere else to stop. And I really have no idea exactly what they've done, but I've requested medical records from the University of Utah where they did this surgery, and now they're playing a game with me. They are not releasing the records that they are required by law to release, so that's just making them look even more suspicious. They released to me, I requested my full entire record, and they gave me one CT scan, and that was it. I had an entire surgery there. I was hospitalized for a whole week, and all that they gave me was one CT. So I think there's going to be there is a problem. And what is crazy is that they have been able to conceal and get away with what they've done as long as they have. Because as soon as they did what they did, the United Kingdom knew what they had done. They had producers putting out shows about Teletubby, which I think I've described, the significance of that earlier, which sounds weird. But that hospital, which put microchips in my body and turned me into a teletorture victim, which basically is someone who's tortured by remote means, remotely tortured by people from a distance. While they did this to me, they then acquired huge grants. You can look it up. In 1996, it was less than a year later. It's pretty much right after my surgery. They got the money, but then their program got started in 1996. About the time that they confirmed that what they had done to me was working, because they started practicing on me in 1996. And that hospital got a huge grant from NASA and the Department of Defense, and those were the groups that were responsible for telesurgery and telepharmacy programs. And they also acquired such an enormous amount of money from quote-unquote private donations, which were really from people who were huge political figures, such as Huntsman, who was a political advisor to Richard Nixon, the president, and who also went to college, or went to the same college about approximately the same time as the Prime Minister for Jordan, which is where Kate Middleton and her family were living around that time. They were able to purchase with this additional huge amount of money that was not even connected to the telesurgery. They were able to purchase 15 huge new medical properties and buildings. I'm not sure if some of those purchases were lots, and then they did some construction on those lots and built their own buildings, or if they bought buildings that were pre-existing. I really don't know, but to come into that kind of money all at once, all of a sudden, about the same time that they're getting this NASA and Department of Defense money is, it's a clear payoff for what they were willing to do to someone like me. And then I've basically been tracked and tortured ever since. I was then, after that surgery, as I've already described, forced to work for, I was not given a choice. I was forced to take a job with people who were in the microchip industry, microchip semiconductor industry, who worked for Intel in quote-unquote top secret programs. Those are not my words. Those were Mary Delbalzo's words. I asked her what. I knew she was a lawyer. I was forced to take the job. I wasn't given an option. And I wasn't even asked. She didn't ask me to take the job. My mother was told to take me to their house. The arrangements were made, and I was forced to work for them. And all I knew is that she was a lawyer. Later, after I was working for her, I asked her what kind of lawyer she was. And I didn't know what had happened to me at that time. And she said, her words were that she was a lawyer who worked in top secret programs dealing with intellectual property. Basically, I was a guinea pig. And it was an excuse to do something to me that people could make sure would affect the rest of my entire life and keep me out of the way. There is never a time nobody could make a claim that it was for my best interests. No one was going to claim that this was going to be doing me a favor. I would enhance my career opportunities. Everyone knew. Right from the start, that this was not going to be something that would benefit my life, but would ruin my life. And then that's what they did. So now when I'm trying to get records from them, and while they and others are still torturing me, no one should be surprised. The only surprising thing is that the United Kingdom knew. My own country sold me out to be a laughingstock to other countries, like the UK and Canada. And then much later I did find out that there's some connection to the Middleton family, which was really shocking because I never crossed my mind that I wasn't even interested in anything like that. Never heard of them before. Never heard of them until maybe 2009, which was a decade later. And really, the only reason that somebody would then torture me to the extent that they did and try to kill me repeatedly, and harm others so badly, the only reason why the United States would have such a vested interest in the Middletons is if they think they're getting something out of it politically. I mean, the United Kingdom can promote their own people. I mean, supposedly people choose who they want to be with, but that's not really the case. In this kind of a situation, people get groomed to be receptive to certain individuals. I mean, from the time they're kids. And I think now they're so good at it that people think that they really are choosing for themselves in some way. In the meantime, you've got these huge political groups that are backing the quote-unquote formation of individuals that they hope will bring the rest of their group in to a position of power. And the United States has made it very clear that with the kind of torture that they're willing to do to their own citizens, and the way that they're willing to mock their own citizens, and torture their own babies, and murder their own babies, they've made it very clear that they have a vested interest for some reason. And it's not, there's no possible way that it's just because they are enamored of the idea of royalty in general, or those who are close to them. And the only thing that I can think of is that really it's supposedly Parliament that has more of the power over there. And supposedly they're just figureheads, the royalty, or like the Queen Elizabeth. But I do know that even if she's just a figurehead, and it's kind of a costume party kind of a position, one thing that the United States would be very interested in taking part of and having someone in on would be their state papers. And she supposedly gets a big box of state papers, diplomatic cables and state papers, and some intelligence records, I'm sure. And the Prime Minister visits her once a week. So she is privy to confidential information that no one else is going to be seeing. Not that she would see everything. I'm sure there's a lot they never show her, or the person who's in charge at that time for having that role. But the fact that it's a public role where you can use your position or voice to sort of lean to point towards a group, or maybe try to help a group when needed, or when it's thought by some group that it's needed. And because she is privy to these papers and this information, I'm positive that that's why the United States, that's what the United States is interested in. They want someone in who is going to be giving that information to them.